Admiral Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the large windows. The HSN Retribution was the biggest ship in the Third Fleet, and Kim had commanded it for 12 years. He was getting old now, with gray hair and lines on his face from too many battles, but his eyes were still sharp and cold. The bridge was quiet except for the soft sounds of computers working. Captain Bora Park walked up to him with a datapad in her hands. She looked worried. "Admiral, we got a message from the outer patrol ships," she said. "Something happened at Kepler 442b. Kim turned to look at her. Kepler 442b was a small world with people who had not yet learned to travel between stars. They were peaceful farmers and craftsmen who worked with bronze tools. Humanity had been watching them for 20 years, making sure no one bothered them. It was the law. "What kind of something?" Kim asked. Park's face was grim. "The patrol ship lost contact with the planet 3 days ago. When they went to check, they found—" She stopped talking and handed him the datapad. Kim looked at the screen. What he saw made his stomach feel sick. The cities were burning. The fields were empty. Bodies lay everywhere. This was not a natural disaster or a war between the people of that world. This was something much worse. "How many?" Kim asked quietly. 400 million people lived on that planet, sir. The patrol ship scanned the whole world. They found maybe a few thousand still alive, hiding in caves and forests. Kim felt anger growing inside him like a fire. 50 years ago, after the terrible Hegemon Wars, humanity had made one simple rule for all the star-traveling peoples. Do not hurt worlds that cannot defend themselves. Do not take their people as slaves. Do not destroy their cities. Leave them alone to grow and learn. It was the only law humanity cared about. They did not tell other species how to trade or fight among themselves. But this one thing was sacred. The young worlds were to be protected. Do we know who did this? Kim asked. Dr. Jinwoo Lee walked over from his station. He was the ship's expert on alien life and had been studying the data from the planet. His face was pale and angry. The scan showed Zephyrian energy weapons, Lee said, and we found marks from their transport ships. They took most of the people, Admiral. This was not a quick raid. They were here for weeks, taking everyone they could carry. Kim knew about the Zephyrians. They were tall, thin creatures that looked like snakes standing on 2 legs. They were traders who sold goods across many star systems. They were also known for using slave workers, but they always claimed the slaves came from their own worlds. The Zephyrians know the law, Kim said. His voice was getting colder. They signed the agreement. They promised to respect protected worlds. Captain Park brought up more data on her screen. Sir, this might not be the first time. We have reports of 3 other worlds going quiet in the last 6 months. All of them were protected worlds. All of them had people who could not fight back. Lee nodded. I checked the Zephyrian trade routes. Their ships have been moving through this area a lot lately, more than they need for normal business. Kim stared out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, hundreds of millions of innocent people were dead or enslaved. The Zephyrians had broken the one law that mattered. They had killed children and farmers and teachers who had never hurt anyone. Park, send a message to all fleet captains, Kim said. Tell them to come here now. Full battle speed. Sir, should I also contact Earth Command? Yes, tell them what we found. Tell them the Zephyrians broke the law. Kim turned to face his crew. And tell them we are going to make them pay. The bridge crew looked at each other. They all knew what this meant. Humanity did not make many laws for other species, but when someone broke the laws they did make, the punishment was always the same: total war. Over the next 2 days, ships arrived from across the sector. Big warships with guns that could destroy cities, fast attack ships that could hunt down enemies, support ships filled with marines and weapons. The Third Fleet grew from 30 ships to over 200. General Hyejin Choi arrived on a transport from the nearest human base. She was in charge of protecting all the human colonies, and she had fought in more battles than anyone else in the fleet. When she walked onto Kim's ship, her face was hard as stone. I saw the reports, she said. How bad is it? Kim showed her the data from Kepler 442b, pictures of empty cities, numbers that showed how many people were gone, evidence of Zephyrian ships and weapons. This is not just one raid, Choi said after looking at everything. This is a business. They have been doing this for a long time. Then we stopped their business, Kim said. Forever, Choi nodded. Earth Command gave us full permission. Find the Zephyrians. Find their slave camps. Free whoever we can save. And make sure they never do this again. Kim walked to the center of the bridge and spoke to his crew. For 50 years we have kept the peace among the stars. We asked other species to follow one simple rule. Protect the innocent. Leave the young worlds alone. Most species agreed. Most species followed the law. He paused and looked at each person on the bridge. The Zephyrians chose to break that law. They chose to murder children and enslave farmers. They chose to destroy worlds that could not fight back. Kim's voice got louder. They made their choice. Now we make ours. We hunt them down. We free their slaves. We destroy their ships. We show the galaxy why humanity made this law in the first place. The crew cheered. Captain Park started giving orders to the other ships. Dr. Lee began studying star maps to find where the Zephyrians might have taken their prisoners. General Choi planned the attacks they would need to make. As the fleet prepared to leave, Kim looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere in the darkness, evil people were hurting the innocent. But they had made a mistake. They had made humanity angry. And when humanity got angry, worlds burned. Commander Subin Yoon checked her rifle one more time as the transport ship got ready to land. Around her, 50 Marines did the same thing. They all wore black armor and carried weapons that could cut through metal. Their faces were painted with dark colors to hide them in the shadows. 2 minutes to drop, the pilot called out. His name was Tae-Young Kang, and everyone called him Reaper. He was the best fighter pilot in the fleet and could fly anything with wings or engines. Yoon looked at her Marines. They were all young and strong and angry. They had seen the pictures from Kepler 442b. They had heard about the dead children and burned cities. Now they wanted to fight back. Listen up, Yoon said. This is a Zephyrian slave camp on the planet below. Intelligence says there are maybe 3,000 prisoners down there. Most of them are from worlds that could not defend themselves. She pointed to a map on the wall. The camp is in a valley with high walls around it. The Zephyrians have guards and weapons, but they are not expecting us. We go in fast and hard, save the prisoners, kill anyone who tries to stop us. The Marines nodded. They understood. Above them, Admiral Kim watched the attack from his command ship. Captain Park stood next to him, reading reports from their spy ships that had been following Zephyrian traders for weeks. We found 12 camps so far, Park said, all of them hidden on small planets in empty star systems. The Zephyrians have been very careful to keep them secret. Not secret enough, Kim said. What about their main fleet? Still looking for us. They think we are just angry about one planet. They do not know we found their whole operation. On the planet's surface, Yoon's Marines landed in the forest near the slave camp. They moved like ghosts through the trees, making no sound. When they reached the edge of the camp, Yoon used her binoculars to look at the guards. The Zephyrians were tall and thin with green scales and long tails. They carried energy weapons and wore light armor. There were about 50 of them guarding over 3,000 prisoners. The prisoners looked terrible. They were too thin and wore dirty clothes. Some had injuries that were not healing properly. Many were children who cried for their parents. All of them looked scared and hopeless. Yoon felt her anger grow. These were innocent people who had been stolen from their homes and forced to work for their kidnappers. Some of them might be from Kepler 442b, the only survivors of their world. All teams, get ready, she whispered into her radio. We attack in 30 seconds. The Marines spread out around the camp. Some went to the main gate. Others climbed the walls. A few moved to where the prisoners were kept to protect them when the fighting started. Attack now, Yoon ordered. The battle was fast and brutal. Human Marines came from everywhere at once. Their weapons were better than Zephyrian guns. Their armor was stronger than Zephyrian attacks, and they were much more angry than their enemies. The Zephyrian guards tried to fight back, but they were used to bullying people who could not defend themselves. They had never fought real soldiers before. In 10 minutes, all the guards were dead and the camp was free. Yoon walked among the prisoners, giving them food and water. Many of them spoke languages she did not know, but they all understood that the humans had come to help them. Commander, one of her Marines called out, you need to see this. He led her to a building where the Zephyrians kept their records. Inside were files about every prisoner in the camp, where they came from, how much they could be sold for, how long they were expected to live while working. But there was something worse. The files showed that this was just one small part of a huge business. The Zephyrians had been stealing people from young worlds for over 200 years. They had 47 different worlds listed as harvested. Billions of people were gone. Yoon sent the information to Admiral Kim immediately. When he read it, his face became very dark. Captain Park, he said. Send a message to the Zephyrian government. Tell them we want to talk. A few hours later, the main screen on Kim's bridge showed a Zephyrian leader. His name was Trade Prince Makran, and he was covered in expensive jewelry. He looked annoyed, like talking to humans was wasting his time. Admiral Kim, Makran said in a voice that sounded like a snake hissing. I hear your people have been attacking our business operations. This is very rude behavior. Your business operations? Kim asked. You mean the slave camps where you keep stolen people? Makran waved one of his thin hands. These are legal workers from worlds that belong to the Zephyrian Empire. We have every right to use them as we see fit. Those worlds never belonged to you, Kim said. They were protected under galactic law. The law that you signed and promised to follow. Laws made by young species who do not understand how the galaxy really works. Makran replied. Your kind was living in caves when my people were already trading among the stars. You have no right to tell us what we can and cannot do. Kim smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. You want to see what humans from caves can do? Keep watching. The screen went black. Kim turned to his crew. All ships battle positions, he ordered. Find me the Zephyrian fleet. It is time to teach them about human law. Pilot Kang was already in his fighter, leading a squadron of 12 other ships. They were fast and deadly, built for hunting enemies in space. When the sensors found a group of Zephyrian warships near a gas giant, Kang and his pilots went to meet them. The Zephyrians had 50 ships to the humans' 13. They thought this would be an easy fight. They were very wrong. Human fighters moved like angry insects, too fast for the bigger Zephyrian ships to hit. They attacked from all directions at once, using tactics that confused their enemies. When a Zephyrian ship tried to run away, the humans chased it down and destroyed it. Kang himself shot down 7 enemy ships in the first battle. His squadron destroyed the entire Zephyrian group without losing a single pilot. When the fight was over, he sent a message back to Admiral Kim. Reaper to command. Enemy fleet destroyed. No human losses. Ready for next target. News of the battle spread quickly through space. Other alien species heard that a small group of human fighters had destroyed a much larger Zephyrian fleet. Some were impressed. Others were worried. All of them started to pay attention. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Wu Jin Nam was working day and night to build new ships for the human fleet. These were called Fury-class warships, and they were designed for one thing: destroying enemies completely. The new ships had bigger guns, stronger armor, and faster engines than anything else in space. They also had special weapons that could break through Zephyrian shields, the technology that had made the Snake People think they were safe from human attacks. As more Fury-class ships joined the fleet, Admiral Kim's force grew stronger and more dangerous. They rescued prisoners from slave camps across 3 star systems. They destroyed Zephyrian trade ships that were carrying stolen people. They attacked every Zephyrian military base they could find. Trade Prince Makran was no longer annoyed. He was scared. In just 2 weeks, the humans had freed over 20,000 slaves and destroyed hundreds of Zephyrian ships. His profitable business was falling apart. He sent messages to other Zephyrian leaders telling them to bring all their ships together for one big battle. If they could destroy the human fleet, they could go back to their slave business. If they lost, everything would be ruined. These humans think they are so strong, Makran told his generals. But we have been fighting in space for 1,000 years. We have more ships and better technology. We will crush them and show the galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire cannot be stopped. But on his command ship, Admiral Kim was reading reports from his intelligence officers. They had learned about the Zephyrian plan to gather all their ships in one place. Good, Kim said. Let them come. It will save us the trouble of hunting them down one by one. Dr. Lee looked up from his computer. Admiral, I finished studying their records. It is worse than we thought. They have been doing this for over 2 centuries. 47 worlds completely destroyed. Almost 3 billion people killed or enslaved. Kim nodded slowly. Then we make sure it never happens again. The final battle was coming. On one side, the Zephyrian Empire with thousands of ships and centuries of experience. On the other side, humanity with their anger and their determination to protect the innocent. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone broke the only law that humanity really cared about. Ambassador Donghyun Ryu stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, looking at representatives from hundreds of different worlds. Some looked like humans. Others were so strange that it hurt to look at them. All of them were talking loudly about what humanity was doing to the Zephyrians. The Eldorian delegate, an old creature named Nathek, raised one of his 4 arms to get attention. The Eldorians had been friends with humanity for many years. They were peaceful people who preferred talking to fighting. "The humans are doing what we should have done long ago," Nathek said in his deep voice. "The Zephyrians have been stealing people from young worlds for centuries. We all knew it was happening, but we were too afraid to stop them." A Belvarian representative made angry clicking sounds with his insect mouth. "The humans are too violent. They destroy entire fleets without trying to talk first. This is not how civilized species should behave." Ryu stepped forward. He was a small man compared to most of the aliens in the room, but when he spoke, everyone listened. "You want to talk about civilized behavior?" he asked. "Where were your voices when the Zephyrians were killing children? Where was your concern when they burned cities full of innocent people?" He pulled out a data pad and showed pictures on the big screen behind him. Images of the destroyed worlds. Lists of the dead. Evidence of Zephyrian slave camps. "For 50 years, humanity asked you to help us protect the young worlds," Rue continued. "We asked you to join us in making sure that advanced species would not hurt those who could not defend themselves. Most of you said yes, but you did nothing when the law was broken." The hall became very quiet. Many of the delegates looked uncomfortable because they knew Ryu was right. "You chose to ignore the Zephyrian slave trade because it did not affect your worlds," Ryu said. His voice was getting louder. "You chose money and comfort over the lives of billions of innocent people. You had 50 years to do the right thing." He paused and looked around the room. "Now you will watch as humanity does what should have been done decades ago. We will stop the Zephyrians. We will free their slaves, and we will make sure this never happens again." The Galactic Council meeting ended with no agreement. Some species supported humanity's war against the Zephyrians. Others worried that humans were too dangerous to be left alone. All of them were watching to see what would happen next. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory hidden inside an asteroid, scientist Yejin Song was working on new weapons for the human fleet. She was young but very smart, and she had been studying Zephyrian technology for years. "The problem with their shields," she explained to a group of engineers, "is that they are designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. But they are not good at stopping physical objects that move really fast." She showed them her new invention, the Wrath Protocol. It was a special weapon that shot heavy metal rods at incredible speed. The rods could go right through Zephyrian shields and destroy ships from the inside. "We can install these on all our ships," Song said. "The Zephyrians will not know what hit them." Captain Mi-Young Lim was testing another new weapon on her stealth ship, the Silent Vengeance. Her ship could become invisible to most sensors, which meant she could get close to enemy targets without being seen. Her mission was to find and capture Zephyrian leaders. The Snake People had a hierarchy based on wealth and family connections. If Lim could remove the top leaders, the rest of their empire might fall apart. She had already captured 3 trade princes and several generals. Each one gave her information about Zephyrian military plans and the locations of more slave camps. The information was always accurate, because the prisoners knew what happened to Zephyrians who lied to angry humans. While Lim hunted leaders, Admiral Kim prepared for the biggest space battle in galactic history. Intelligence reports showed that the Zephyrian Empire was gathering every ship they had near a place called the Crimson Nebula. "They have over 3,000 ships," Captain Park reported. "Everything from small fighters to huge battleships. It is the largest fleet anyone has ever assembled." Kim looked at his own fleet. He had 800 ships, including the new Fury-class warships and vessels from human colonies across the galaxy. It was still a powerful force, but the Zephyrians had almost 4 times as many ships. "Numbers do not always decide battles," Kim said. "The Zephyrians are used to fighting enemies who cannot fight back. They have never faced an opponent who wants to destroy them completely." Dr. Lee brought more bad news. "Sir, we found another slave world. This one had 60 million people before the Zephyrians came. Now there are maybe a few 100,000 left, all of them working in mining camps." "How many worlds is that now?" Kim asked. 47 confirmed destroyed worlds," Lee answered. "Almost 3 billion people dead or enslaved over the past 200 years. Kim felt his anger grow even stronger. The Zephyrians were not just criminals. They were monsters who had turned genocide into a business. They deserved no mercy. The battle at the Crimson Nebula began when the 2 fleets met in the red clouds of space dust and gas. The Zephyrians attacked first, sending waves of fighters and missiles toward the human ships. But the humans were ready. Their new Wrath Protocol weapons cut through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. Their pilots flew with a fury that scared their enemies. Their tactics were unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Instead of trying to win a normal space battle, the humans did something crazy. They turned their ships into weapons and rammed them into the largest Zephyrian vessels. Each human ship that crashed into an enemy battleship destroyed not just the target, but also several other ships around it. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. They were used to fighting people who wanted to survive the battle. But the humans seemed to care more about destroying their enemies than staying alive. "They are insane," screamed one Zephyrian commander. "They are ramming their own ships into us. Why would they do that?" But Admiral Kim knew why. Every human pilot who died in a ramming attack was thinking about the children who had been murdered on Kepler 442b. They were thinking about the families torn apart and sold into slavery. They were thinking about 47 dead worlds. The battle lasted for 8 hours. When it was over, the Crimson Nebula was full of wreckage from destroyed ships. Almost the entire Zephyrian fleet was gone. The human fleet had lost 300 ships, but 500 were still fighting. Trade Prince Makran's ship was damaged and trying to escape when human fighters caught up with it. Captain Kang, the pilot called Reaper, flew his fighter right up to the Zephyrian command ship's bridge. "This is for all the children you killed," Kang said over the radio, and then he fired his weapons. News of the battle spread across the galaxy in just a few hours. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled trade routes for centuries, had been destroyed by a smaller human fleet. Species that had been afraid of the Zephyrians for generations suddenly realized that the Snake People were not invincible. On their home world of Zirak Prime, the remaining Zephyrian leaders were in panic. Their military was gone, their slave business was destroyed, and the humans were coming for them. Some Zephyrians tried to surrender. Others tried to run away to distant galaxies. A few decided to fight to the end, even though they knew they could not win. But Admiral Kim was not interested in surrender or escape. He had made a promise to the dead children of 47 worlds. He would make the Zephyrians pay for every life they had taken. The human fleet began moving toward Zirak Prime, the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. Behind them, they left a trail of freed slaves and destroyed slave camps. Ahead of them waited the final battle. The galaxy watched and waited to see what humanity would do when they reached the Zephyrian homeworld. Some hoped the humans would show mercy. Others knew that mercy was the last thing the Zephyrians deserved. Ambassador Ryu sent one final message to the Galactic Council. "You had centuries to stop this evil. You chose to look the other way. Now watch as humanity shows you what justice really means." The end was coming for the Zephyrian Empire, and everyone in the galaxy knew it. Fleet Admiral Kyung-Soo An arrived at Zirak Prime 3 days before the main attack. He was Admiral Kim's old teacher and the most experienced commander in the human navy. His hair was completely white, and his face showed the scars of many battles. "The planet is heavily defended," he told Kim as they looked at sensor readings from the Zephyrian homeworld. "But something is wrong. Their orbital weapons are not firing at our scouts. Their defense satellites are turned off." Captain Park studied the data on her screen. "Sir, it looks like most of their military equipment is shut down. Either they are setting a trap, or they have given up." Dr. Youngmin Han, a forensic scientist who had been documenting Zephyrian war crimes, brought even worse news. "Admiral, we decoded their government files. The Zephyrian leadership has moved underground. They are using their own people as human shields." Kim felt his anger turn cold. Even now, facing total defeat, the Zephyrians were willing to sacrifice innocent civilians to save themselves. It was the same evil thinking that had led them to destroy 47 worlds. "How many civilians?" Kim asked. "About 2 billion on the planet," Han replied. "Most of them are just normal people who never hurt anyone. They work in factories and farms and schools. But the government leaders are hiding in bunkers underneath the biggest cities." Admiral An shook his head. "If we attack from space, we will kill millions of innocent Zephyrians along with the guilty ones. That makes us no better than them. But if we let the leaders escape, they might start their slave business again somewhere else," Park pointed out. "And they still have information about other criminal networks across the galaxy." Kim was quiet for a long time, thinking about the choice they faced. He could order an orbital bombardment that would destroy the entire planet and everyone on it. The Zephyrian leadership would be dead, but so would billions of innocent people. Or he could send ground troops to fight through underground tunnels and bunkers, which would be very dangerous and might let some leaders escape. Colonel Eunji Seo solved the problem for him. She was the leader of the Ghost Brigade, the most elite special forces unit in the human military. Her soldiers could fight in any environment and complete missions that seemed impossible. "Admiral, my people volunteer for surface operations," she said. "We go down there and dig them out of their holes. We save the civilians and capture the leaders. It will be hard, but it is the right thing to do." Kim looked at her small, tough face. Seo was young, but she had led more successful missions than officers twice her age. Her soldiers loved her because she never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. "Colonel, you understand what you are volunteering for," Kim said. "Underground fighting against an enemy that knows the terrain. They will have traps and ambushes waiting. Some of your people will not come home." "Sir, we joined the military to protect innocent people," Seo replied. "That includes innocent Zephyrians. If we start killing civilians just because it is easier, we become the monsters we are fighting against." Admiral An nodded with approval. "The colonel is right. We do this the hard way because it is the right way." The invasion of Zyrak Prime began at dawn. Thousands of human marines landed in the cities while fighters and bombers attacked military targets. The Zephyrian army tried to fight back, but most of their best soldiers had died in the space battles. Colonel Seo led her Ghost Brigade into the deepest tunnels under the capital city. They wore special armor that could protect them from cave-ins and poison gas. Their weapons could cut through metal doors and concrete walls. The underground complex was huge, with tunnels that went down for miles. The Zephyrian leaders had been building these bunkers for centuries, preparing for the day when their enemies might reach their homeworld. Seo and her soldiers fought through room after room, clearing out guards and searching for the main command centers. The Zephyrians had set traps everywhere, bombs hidden in walls, poison gas in air vents, and automated guns that fired at anything that moved. "This is like fighting in a maze designed by crazy people," one of Seo's sergeants said, as they blasted through another locked door. "Keep moving," Seo ordered. "Intelligence says the main leaders are 3 levels down. We are getting close." Above ground, Dr. Han was working with captured Zephyrian computers, trying to find evidence of all their crimes. What she discovered was even worse than anyone had imagined. The Zephyrians had not just enslaved people from young worlds. They had also conducted experiments on their prisoners. They had bred slaves like animals, trying to create stronger workers. They had tested new weapons on helpless victims. They had even used slave children for medical research. "This is not just murder and slavery," Han reported to Admiral Kim. "This is systematic torture of entire species. They treated other intelligent beings like laboratory animals." Kim felt sick as he read the reports. The Zephyrians had committed crimes that were worse than anything in human history. They had turned evil into a science and suffering into an art form. In the tunnels below, Colonel Seo finally reached the main command bunker. Inside, she found the last of the Zephyrian leadership, 12 trade princes and their top generals. They were trying to destroy their computers when the Ghost Brigade broke down the door. "Stop where you are," Seo shouted, pointing her weapon at them. The Zephyrians looked scared and angry. One of them, an old trade prince named Velkar, stepped forward with his hands raised. "We surrender," he said in broken human language. "We offer to pay compensation for any damage. We can negotiate a peace treaty." Seo stared at him with cold eyes. "Negotiate? You had 200 years to negotiate. You chose to murder children instead." "That was business," Velkar protested. "We were just following the old ways of trade. Surely we can reach some agreement." "The only agreement you get is this," Seo said. "You will stand trial for genocide. You will face the families of the people you killed, and you will spend the rest of your miserable lives paying for what you did." The capture of the Zephyrian leadership marked the end of organized resistance on Zyrak Prime. The remaining Zephyrian military units surrendered when they learned their government was gone. The planet was now under human control. Admiral Kim walked through the captured bunkers, looking at the evidence of Zephyrian crimes. In one room, he found files about every slave world they had attacked. In another, he discovered records of torture experiments that made him want to destroy the entire planet. How could any intelligent species do this to innocent people? he asked Dr. Han. Power without conscience, she replied. They convinced themselves that other species were not really people. That made it easier to treat them like animals. Fleet Admiral An joined them in the bunker. The Galactic Council is asking what we plan to do with the Zephyrian Empire. Some species think we should let the survivors rebuild their government. Kim laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Rebuild? After what we found here, the Zephyrian Empire is finished. It will never exist again. Above them, on the surface of Zyrak Prime, human engineers were already working to help the civilian population. They brought food and medicine and teachers. They started rebuilding the parts of cities that had been damaged in the fighting. But in the deepest bunkers, Colonel Seo and her soldiers were still finding new horrors. Rooms full of torture devices. Laboratories where they had experimented on slaves. Computer files that showed they had been planning to attack even more worlds. The worst discovery was a room full of preserved body parts from different species. The Zephyrians had been collecting trophies from their victims, keeping pieces of murdered aliens like hunting prizes. When Kim saw that room, he made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Admiral An, he said quietly, send a message to every species in the galaxy. Tell them what we found here. Show them the evidence. Let them see what the Zephyrians really were. And then what? An asked. Then we make sure this never happens again, Kim replied. The Zephyrian Empire ends today, but our job is just beginning. The final phase of the war was about to begin. Not the part with battles and explosions, but the part where humanity would reshape the galaxy to protect the innocent. And this time, they would not ask for permission. 1 year after the fall of Zyrak Prime, President So Young-bae stood before the reformed Galactic Council. The Great Hall looked different now. Where once hundreds of species had argued and made excuses, now there were fewer delegates. But they all listened when humanity spoke. The Zephyrian Empire no longer exists, Bae announced to the gathered representatives. Their territory has been divided among the species whose worlds they destroyed. Their surviving population has been moved to a single planet under permanent human supervision. She paused and looked around the room. Many of the alien delegates looked uncomfortable. They knew that humanity had become the most powerful force in the galaxy, and they were not sure what that meant for their own worlds. Some of you have asked what humanity plans to do with this power, Bae continued. The answer is simple. We will do what we have always done. We will protect the innocent. We will keep the peace. And we will make sure that what happened to 47 worlds never happens again. Elder Drakthul, the new leader of the Galactic Council, stood up with his 4 arms spread wide. He was an old Aldorian who had seen many wars and understood the cost of peace. President Bae speaks truth, Drakthul said in his deep voice. For too long, this council ignored the suffering of the weak. We chose profit over protection, trade over truth. The humans have shown us the price of our cowardice. On a moon orbiting a dead star, Judge Advocate General Chang Ho-im was finishing the largest war crimes trial in galactic history. In front of him sat 847 former Zephyrian leaders, including Trade Prince Makran and General Velkar. The trial had lasted 6 months. Each day, survivors from the destroyed worlds told their stories. They spoke about families torn apart, children murdered, entire cultures wiped out for profit. The evidence was so overwhelming that even the Zephyrian defendants had stopped trying to defend themselves. The crimes you committed go beyond murder and slavery, Im told the prisoners. You attempted to destroy the very idea that intelligent life has value. You turned suffering into a business and genocide into government policy. Trade Prince Makran tried one last time to save himself. Your Honor, we were following ancient traditions. Our species has always used inferior beings for labor. We did not know these humans considered it wrong. Im looked at him with cold eyes. You signed the Galactic Protection Treaty 50 years ago. You promised to respect the law humanity created. You knew exactly what you were doing when you broke that promise. The sentences were swift and final, life imprisonment for all the leaders. They would spend the rest of their lives mining raw materials on the same barren moon where they were tried. The materials they dug up would be used to rebuild the worlds they had destroyed. Justice, Im said as the guards led the prisoners away, is making sure that those who caused suffering experience it themselves. Meanwhile, Captain Seung-Wan Oh was leading the new peacekeeping corps on patrol around a young world called Haven 3. The people there had just discovered fire and were starting to build their first cities. They had no idea that giant ships moved among the stars above them. O's ship, the Guardian, was one of 50 vessels stationed around protected worlds throughout the galaxy. Each ship was crewed by volunteers from different species who had sworn to uphold humanity's law. "Contact on sensors," reported his alien navigation officer, a peaceful Deltan named Crixta. "Unknown ship approaching the planet." O looked at his screen. The ship was not big, but it was moving fast and trying to hide from their sensors. That usually meant trouble. "Send a warning message," O ordered. "Tell them this world is protected under galactic law. They need to leave immediately." The reply came back in harsh electronic sounds. O's computer translated it. "Human dogs have no authority here. We take what we want," O sighed. Even a year after the destruction of the Zephyrian Empire, some criminals still thought they could prey on defenseless worlds. They always learned they were wrong. "All weapons target the intruder," O commanded. "Disable their engines, but try not to kill them. They can stand trial for attempted violation of protected space." The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. The criminal ship was destroyed when its crew tried to ram the Guardian rather than surrender. O shook his head sadly. Some people never learned. Back on Earth, Dr. Jinwoo Lee was putting the finishing touches on his memorial project. He had spent the past year traveling to each of the 47 worlds that the Zephyrians had destroyed. On each planet, he built a monument to remember the people who had lived there. The monuments were beautiful structures made from crystal and metal. Each one told the story of the civilization that had been lost. Their art, their music, their dreams for the future. Everything the Zephyrians had tried to erase was preserved forever. "We cannot bring them back," Lee said as he dedicated the final memorial, "but we can make sure they are never forgotten. Their deaths gave meaning to our law. Their memory gives purpose to our protection." On the bridge of his flagship Justice, Grand Admiral Kim watched the stars and thought about the future. His ship was the most powerful vessel ever built, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But he hoped he would never have to use them. The galaxy was different now. The young worlds were safe. The slave trade was ended. Species that had once ignored suffering now worked together to prevent it. It had taken a war to achieve peace, but the peace was real. "Admiral," Captain Park said as she brought him the daily reports, "3 more species have asked to join the protection treaty. That makes 67 total." Kim nodded. "Good. The more species that join us, the stronger the protection becomes." "Sir, there is also this," Park said, handing him a message pad. "It is from the survivors on Kepler 442b, the ones we rescued from the slave camps." Kim read the message. It was written in simple words, but it carried deep meaning. "To the humans who saved us, our world is gone, but our people live. Our children will grow up free because you fought for strangers you had never met. We will never forget your kindness. When our descendants reach the stars, they will follow your example. They will protect the innocent as you protected us." Kim felt tears in his eyes. This was why humanity had gone to war. Not for conquest or glory, but to save people who could not save themselves. President Bay's voice came over the ship's communication system. She was making her final speech to the Galactic Council. 50 years ago, humanity asked you to join us in protecting the weak," she said. "Most of you refused. You were afraid of the cost. You thought it was not your problem." Her voice grew stronger. "The Zephyrians taught us that evil grows when good people do nothing. They showed us that some problems cannot be solved with words and treaties. Sometimes the only way to protect innocence is through strength." Kim walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, new civilizations were taking their first steps toward the stars. Young species were learning to use tools and language and art. None of them knew about the great war that had been fought to protect them. "The law of the stars still stands," Bay concluded her speech. "Harm the defenseless and humanity will find you. Threaten the innocent and we will stop you. We did not want to be the galaxy's police, but you made us this way." Kim smiled as he remembered the words he had spoken a year ago, when this all began. He had promised to make the Zephyrians pay for their crimes. That promise had been kept, but now there was a new promise. Humanity would stand guard over the galaxy's children. They would watch the dark spaces between stars. They would be the shield that protected those who could not protect themselves. The stars shone peacefully in the endless night. And somewhere among them, human ships moved like silent guardians, making sure that peace would last. The age of predators was over. The age of protectors had begun. And if anyone forgot the lesson that humanity had taught with fire and blood, they would learn it again. Because some laws were worth fighting for, no matter what the cost. The galaxy was safe. The innocent were protected. And humanity kept its eternal watch among the stars.